If your goal is to simply get a boss kill, it's easy. Just take on the Chaos Elemental or Giant Maul. The Chaos Elemental won't teach you much, while the Giant Maul will likely leave you frustrated and worse off than before. Instead, let's go over some of the best beginner bosses in RuneScape 2025, so whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. The first boss of this video is truly what I would call a beginner boss. It's a boss that doesn't have high requirements, has little mechanics, and is worth your time to kill. It's Hermod, the Spirit of War. Out of all of the bosses in this video, this one can only be taken on with the Necromancy combat style. But don't worry, as it only requires a couple of short quests and level 65 in RuneScape's newest skill. Now, Necromancy is worth training anyway, and if you want to get there efficiently, use my guide linked below. This boss only really has two mechanics. The first is the sword smash, indicated by some smoke beneath your character and him swaying his sword into your direction and slamming it into the ground. This is an area of effect attack that will knock off your protection prayers. It's simple to avoid by moving out of the way once you notice him charging up the attack. The second mechanic is him spawning minions. These give Hermod immunity until you've killed the minions, at which point you can re-attack. Now, this boss can easily be AFK'd with the Revolution combat style, but that's not the reason I'm telling you to give this boss a shot. You should kill this boss to get some feel for your damage output and slowly but surely optimize yourself by racing against your personal best time. If at the same time you also pay attention to the boss and avoid its mechanics and also kill minions in case you encounter them, you'll be learning things. At the same time, you'll also be collecting Hermodic plates, which you're going to need to have higher tier Necromancy gear upgrades. So it's a win-win situation. Next up, Ice Cube Boy. Despite the Archglacier being over 3 years old now, it's still what I would consider the best beginner's boss in the game. It's not because it's necessarily the most enjoyable, because that's very subjective player to player. And besides that fact, the feeling of enjoyment at a specific boss ebbs and flows based on how much you've been doing said boss. No, the Archglacier is the best all-rounder boss in the game. The reason for this is simple. It's the only boss at which you can turn on and off mechanics as you choose in normal mode. Yep, you heard that right, you can customize this boss to your liking. You can make it really simple and dumb with no mechanics turned on, or you can turn on all the mechanics and test your skills. On top of that, it has a save death, meaning you don't get sent to death's office if you die at this boss in normal mode. The creeping ice mechanic is a core mechanic you can't turn off, but it does force you to move around the arena. But it also helps you in predicting which mechanic is up next based on how the arena forms and the ice moves around. Flurry causes the Archglacier to occasionally rapidly attack you with different combat styles, forcing you to either switch to a shield and use resonance or flick your prayers, which is best done by keybinding them in your action bar, making it easier to swap between your protection prayers. The Pillars of Ice mechanic tests your movement skills at a higher level than the creeping ice, which comparatively is easily avoided. The Pillars of Ice are tricky as they continuously move around just long enough to hit you, especially if you get lazy. The Exposed Core mechanic tests your damage potential by forcing you to break one of the Archglacier's arms, otherwise you freeze to death. Thankfully, your DPS doesn't have to be all that high in normal mode, but if you don't pay attention, this could still take you out. The coolest looking mechanic by far is the Frost Cannon. This attack teaches you how to use defensives such as Devotion and Protect from Magic to reduce damage, or alternatively you could swap to your shield and use Resonance to get a fat heal instead. And finally, the boss also has a minion spawn, teaching you targeting and possibly some ability prioritization, such as the use of area effect abilities to take out the little ice cubes to get back on the big ice cube as fast as possible. While practicing and learning all of these things, you'll be earning a comfortable amount of GP through its drops and extra troves. Additionally, you'll also be earning charms and even marks of war to use in War's Wares at the PVM hub. Overall, the best beginner boss you could pick. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit different, perhaps a more traditional boss, consider trying one of the Godric Dungeon 2 bosses. Well, except for Grigorovic. At your level, this is probably not what I would call beginner friendly. This lady and her dragon, on the other hand, she is. Vindicta has a really predictable attack pattern and doesn't have too many things going on at once. Avoid her flames and large ranged hits when she rides Gorvak and you'll be good. Switching to a shield and resonancing the ranged hit will give you a fat heal. Hellweir will require a little bit more thinking, but again, if you master two simple mechanics, being the You Will Bleed attack, where you swap to shield and resonance it, and using the Freedom ability on the bleed, you'll be able to kill the boss with little to no food. Although I must admit that at first this may seem daunting to you new players. In that case, watch my full beginner's guide if you're interested in this boss, which I'll link down below. I say this because A full guide just goes a little bit more in depth into what you can expect and how to properly avoid mechanics. If you enjoyed the idea of moving around while fighting a boss, perhaps the Twin Furies are another option worth trying. Although it is worth noting their drops aren't as valuable as the other two I mentioned. As a quick tip, if you'd like to deal damage while moving around, spam click your mouse and then tap your abilities that are keybound on your action bar. This will allow you to move and attack simultaneously. Those were my top picks for true beginner bosses. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.